going on, guys? We're about to start another one. Let's do it. Alright, so here's what we got tonight. We got another side-by-side trailer here, and this one's a little bit of a rush project because the customer lives in the Salt Lake Valley. He wants us to try and get this done before he has to leave town. He's just going to kind of hang out in town for a couple hours while I get this done, and then he'll take it home. So the problem he has is his side-by-side has some sort of an extension on it. You can see he's cut a hole in the expanded right there, but it still doesn't clear. The machine still ends up hitting on this piece of angle. So he wants us to cut this and drop the top angle down 12 inches. And then we just need to re-weld it on there. We also need to take the handles off. Oh, there's some dandies on there. So we just need to cut the handles off and move them down as well. So there's not going to be a whole lot of fluff on this one. We're just going to dive right into it. We'll start cutting this top apart. My first thought is I want to see if I've got a piece of angle that'll work. If I do have a piece of 2x2 angle, I'm just going to cut this off and throw it in the scrap, and I'll just weld a new piece of angle on. It'll be faster, and then I don't have to clean up this piece of angle. Hopefully I got a piece and I can just make that work. So I'm going to go check that now, and then we're just going to dive right into cutting it apart. Let's do it.
Just like the street lights lit this town, like a fire in a blaze, gotta burn it down. Can't be afraid to leave this out. We got this far, don't know how. I see danger in your eyes. They know we'll burn down the night. Come in just like the...
Okay, here's what we got. Handles are cut off. I cleaned up this bottom one because this top one doesn't matter. It's getting scrapped. Okay, then the next thing I did is I pulled my measurement down from here, 12 inches down. Now you got to remember, we need the expanded to be about 11 inches down because it needs to tack to the top piece of angle just like it is now. So if I pull my measurement down 12 inches and then I went one little section of expanded, you can see I've marked it. So it's like an inch higher than where we actually have to cut the angle. That way when we set our piece of angle on there, it'll still tack to the flat face just like that does. So I'm going to cut the expanded now. Once that's cut, I may have to cut a couple of these little tacks holding it on there and pull it away so that I can cut the angle. So we'll get this out of the way first and then we'll go from there.
Come in just like the sunrise. Love, we gonna let it rain. Tonight, we gonna let it rain. Tonight, we gonna let it rain. Just like the sunrise, we gonna let it rain.
Okay guys, I want to give you a look here where we're at. There's about 3.5 inches from the angle to where the next tack is. I may have to cut these. I'm really hoping I don't, but I may have to, just so I can bend this out of the way enough to make this weld right here. And if I have to do that, I'm gonna have to cut this next tack, which could be really tricky. There is one spot of expanded right here that I'm gonna have to repair, but not a big deal. It'll be on the angle, so I'll just hammer it down, tack it back together. Most likely you won't be able to tell. So I stripped all the paint off. The other thing I did is, you know, you can't get a regular grinding disc in here without jacking up the expanded. So I took a zip disc or a cutoff wheel and I just snuck it right between those two and used the side of the zip disc to knock the paint off so that I could make the weld. And it turned out pretty good. Now I'm going to go over to the saw. I'm going to cut a piece of angle. All I have on hand is quarter, so I'll get that piece cut, we'll bring it over and we'll start tacking this together. What I did is I just bent the expanded out of the way just a little bit, just enough so I can get the buffing disc in here and knock that corner off. So it's got a nice 45-degree bevel. I'll take and put my angle piece up there. We'll get it clamped down with our furniture clamps here, and then we'll give you guys a look and show you what the joints look like. Okay, so you can see what those joints look like. We'll be able to get a full pin weld on those. This is 1/8 inch material, this is quarter. It's going to be a full pin weld on all these. I think I'm going to be able to just barely sneak it in there and not have to cut those tacks. And then of course I'll weld here, here, here. They'll be welded 100%. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put some tacks on these corners, and then it looks to me like the angle's kicked down just a little bit. So I'm going to put a square on this and make sure that that is flat, and then I'll tack the back sides on all of these. There may be a little bit of gap on some of these, like that one. But we're running short arc tonight and it's going to be just fine. We'll start getting it tacked, fitting everything. We'll get all the uprights tacked in their position where they need to go, and then we'll start welding them out. So let's do it.
It's time for today's super cool tool.
Alright guys, so for today's super cool tool, we got a little bit of a unique one for you. And a lot of you may disagree with this, but this is something that I've used for years and years in fabrication, and I really do think it is a super cool tool, and I really do think that it is worth mentioning. And that's just plain and simply a crescent. Now the reason I would say a crescent wrench is an awesome fabrication tool is because just like I used it today, when I was fitting up the top piece angle, it was off kilter. And so I needed to be able to tweak it in the right direction. This is one of the best tools you can use for something like that, because you just close the jaws, slip it over the top flange of the angle, and tweak it where you need to. That type of scenario is something that you run into in fabrication all the time. Another awesome use for this is if you've got to break something. There's a lot of guys out there that don't have a break in their shop, and so they've got to come up with creative ways to break metal. This is one of those ways. Now granted, you're not going to be able to break 1/4 inch plate a foot deep and 3 feet long, but you're going to be able to, if you have to, you could score it with the cutoff wheel and then bend it with your crescent wrench. There are certain things you can get away with when you don't have all the equipment that would make the job a lot easier. And this is one of those tools. You know, aside from the abilities that it has in fabrication with like bending things or holding things while you tack it, aside from that, it's a great tool to have in a fab shop, because a lot of times you're on the go, and let's say you're out in the field and you need to loosen a couple bolts, grab a couple crescent wrenches, go out there, loosen the nuts you need to or the bolts that you need to, and you're rolling. It's cool that it's adjustable. As far as price range goes, this is a Crescent brand crescent wrench, which is not the most expensive. I believe I got this one at Home Depot, and I think it might have cost me $20. But you can go to Harbor Freight and get some that are even bigger than this for less than that. So it's just another one of those awesome entry-level tools. If you're looking to get into fabrication, you definitely want this in your arsenal. Go out there, get yourself some crescent wrenches, get them in your arsenal. You definitely will not regret it. So that's going to wrap up today's super cool tool. Let's get back to the project. Alright guys, we got these 2 side welds done just to hold everything in. All 3 uprights are tacked. Now all that's left to do is to weld it out. So we're just gonna go for it. So we'll weld all these out. We'll go into time lapse and knock these out. And then once we get to that point, I still think it's gonna be a little tight getting these ones welded out. So I may have to cut those tacks to get to them. Let's go for it. Okay guys, I want to take just a second to show you guys something. So I've got all these joints welded out on the outside. So all that's left is here. Now if you look close enough, I haven't welded those out. The groove is still there, the bevel. But you can see that has bled clear through from the back side. So you know you're getting 100% pen weld. Same with this one, with that one. So I'm going to take a grinder now with a hard disc. I'm going to back gouge that, give myself a nice smooth groove again, and then I'll take the welder and I'll lay down a nice one in there. That's going to do 2 things. It's going to look pretty, and you know you're getting 100% pen weld. So we'll go ahead and get back to work now. We'll gouge these out and then we'll start welding them out. I don't know if I'm going to have to bust those tacks out so that I can get the welder in there to lay down a nice one. So we'll just have to see how that goes, but we'll jump back into time lapse and we'll finish this out. Okay guys, we got this all rigged up with the crane. All that's left to do now is to clamp this down. I've already smacked it with a hammer and it's pretty dang close. But I'm going to grab a clamp that down, and then I'll go ahead and stitch weld this back on. And then once that's done, I can go ahead and clean up all the spatter, make sure it looks presentable. Then I'll stand it back up and we can start working on the handles. Let's go back into time lapse and we'll get this stitch welded on. Okay guys, as far as the fab work goes, I think that's it. Got our handles welded back on. So now all that's left to do is to shoot it with some paint. So we're going to do that now. Alright guys, it's done. So we got her all painted. It actually went together fairly smooth, which is good because the customer's driving around town somewhere making laps waiting for me to finish. You know, there really was some good stuff in this episode. I felt like, even though it was a simple, small project, a couple of things that I think are worth mentioning are, this was a surgical job. We had to surgically cut and strategically peel back the expanded so that we could save the structure that was there and then add new structure at the end and then reuse the handles. It was just one of those projects where you have to be a surgeon. Sometimes I enjoy stuff like that because sometimes those are the most challenging ones. This one here, it had its challenges. I do think it is better now than when he brought it in for a couple of reasons. For one, the angle on it is quarter and not eighth. It's shorter, so it's going to be stronger. The handles are actually the same height. You'll see that a lot when you start working on trailers. A lot of these trailer manufacturers just whip them together as fast as possible, and they don't even measure stuff like that. So the handles are the same height now. So there was just a lot of good learnings from this one. So I'm going to call the customer and tell him he can come get it and get paid. He'll head for home and I'll go eat some dinner. Alright guys, before we close this video out, I just wanted to say, in honor of the 4th of July, our Independence Day, I just wanted to say thank you to all those servicemen and women out there who serve and protect to make this nation a safe place to live. I'm extremely grateful to live in the country that I do. I believe that it gives me the opportunities that I've had in my life and continue to have in my life to be able to do amazing things. And that's the thing that makes this country amazing, is that we have the opportunity to do whatever we want to do, including things like have a YouTube channel, or build a great big shop in our backyard and run a part-time business. We can raise a family. We're able to worship the way we want to worship. These are the things that make this country, in my opinion, the best place to live. And we want to keep it that way. If we're going to keep it that way, we've got to stand up for what is right and stand up for what we believe in, and we need to do so with respect. And I believe that that is how we are going to break down the walls that we see right now in our country and throughout the world with political divisiveness. I'm extremely grateful for the men and women who have fought and died for this country, and because of that, I have the freedoms that I have today, and I'm able to enjoy those freedoms. And I know where that comes from. I know that. And it's important that we remember that, and that we give credit where credit is due. And those men and women who have fought and bled and died on the battlefields are the people that we owe those freedoms to. So I sincerely want to say thank you. Thank you from Freedom Fab to you guys, because you guys continue to protect those freedoms for myself and for my family. And I am extremely grateful for that. So I just want to wish everyone out there a happy 4th of July, a safe 4th of July. Remember why we celebrate the 4th of July and be grateful for that. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you on the next one. It ends up hitting right here on the top. The machine still ends up hitting on this top rail I may have to bend this, expand it out of the way so I can mail it. Okay guys, we got these two sides mount. We'll go back into time. We'll go, I still think it's going to be a little close getting these ones welded up. I still think it's going to be a little close, a little tight. So go out there and get you some crescent wrenches, throw them in your fab. That's going to do two things. It's going to look pretty, and it's going to give you